Hello everybody, this is JBro63.9, and I know you didn't really expect something like this, but I want to give you guys a bit of an update real fast. I've been busy. I have recorded some stuff, so that'll be coming to you guys soon. But I have some big news. I have recently become a part of the GPC, and if you don't know what the GPC is, it is the Grand Pokemon Conference. Now, the GPC is a league that was recently created by a friend of mine on Twitter who goes by the name of Call Me 911 or Zargs, and he wanted to start a league of sorts. So I figured, hey, if the opportunity is finally here for me, because I missed the signups of 2 leagues already, then I'll take it and let's see what happens. So I end up in this league, and there are quite a lot of people in it. You have Heracroshot, Carter or McCann Pokey, which I've done some videos with before, Richie, Derizzle, Kano, Llama Supreme, Lars or El Storch, Pierre, of course Zargs, Miss Sispit, and Swift. So should be interesting. A lot of these people I actually hadn't met before the league, so it's nice to get to know some more people in the community that are actually tolerable. But for now, no, they're better than tolerable. They're really cool guys. We get along very well in the Skype chat, actually. And so I think this will be great. But anyway, I want to go over my draft picks. Now, I've been talking a lot about this on Twitter, but if you're not active on there, then you don't know what's been happening. So allow me to explain. We ran this on a PPL-style monetary system. So depending on which tier a Pokemon is in Smogon tiering systems, the Pokemon would be given a value. So there were 2 sections of OU, borderline tier, 2 sections of UU, 2 sections of RU, and 2 sections of NU. And I think those are the only tiers, if I remember correctly. Yes, those are the only tiers, and then there's a small leftovers tier, but the only thing in it being Pichu, which is actually drafted, but we'll get to that in a moment. So, anyway, a lot of the Pokemon in these tiering systems were never taken, because people didn't really want to take them. For example, both Mega Charizards were not taken, Mega Pinsir and Mega Slowbro were not taken, Mega Tyranitar, Jirachi, Ferrothorn, Garchomp, Gengar, Azumarill, Politoed, Rotom Wash wasn't even taken. Like, this stuff is insane, but for now, let's get into what's important right now. What did I draft? Because I had a very bizarre draft compared to some other people. A lot of people went for a lot of bulk. This is a very, very bulky draft right now. And bulk is very efficient and very helpful, but I don't like too much bulk. Reason being, I like the versatility. And that was my main theme when I was drafting this team. I wanted versatility to the point where I could have answers to other things. I could bring Pokemon that I know would be effective in multiple situations and were not always a one-trick pony. There is a one-trick pony on the team, but it's only one. Everything else is versatile, and everything else can have multiple different uses. So, that being said, let's start off with my drafts. So, round 1, we had a voting round to decide what Pokemon should be banned, what Pokemon should be unbanned, and we decided to ban everything that Smogon had already banned into the Ubers tier, except for Aegislash. Aegislash is the only thing that was brought back from the Uber tier, and unsurprisingly, it was the first thing drafted. I was the second in the draft. The way the draft worked is there are 11 of us, and actually no, there are 12 of us, my bad. There are un momento. Yes, there are 12 of us. There are 12 people in this league, and I was thinking 11 because I was thinking everybody but myself. So there are 12 people in this league. The way it worked is the first person would draft all the way down to the end of the line, and when you got to the end of the line, you would jump down immediately, not to the beginning of the next line, but at the very end of the next line, and go back the other direction. So essentially how I would end up drafting is I was the second person to draft anything I wanted, and then it came all the way back to me after going all the way down the line, making a U-turn, coming all the way back, and I basically got 2 picks in a row right around Heracrow shot. So I'm not describing it very well, but that's not nearly as important as what I ended up drafting, because I went into this knowing what I wanted for the first draft right away. I wanted Conkeldurr. Conkeldurr is my crutch. If you guys don't already know, I've used him in multiple sessions. He is my favorite fighting type in the game. He's bulky, he has priority, he has recovery, he has lots of utility moves, he can take physical and special hits. He has some really good abilities in Guts and Sheer Force and even Iron Fist, which I probably won't be using, but still, he has really, really good moves and a pretty solid typing as well. He was categorized in the OUB tier, which made him valued at 13.5 points. Now, we all started with a total of 100 points to spend, and I finished with 1 point remaining. A lot of people finished with 0. I think only one person finished with 2. Yeah, one person finished with 2 points, so it's a bit interesting. But anyway, my first draft was Conkeldurr, so I'm down by 13.5 points. I wanted a great fighting type with versatility, and Conkeldurr was it. Now, that being said, I wanted something to offset what Conkeldurr could do. So what's Conkeldurr? Well, a bulky physical attacker that can use knockoff and has good recovery. So I decided to go with something speedy that was a special attacker. And I was looking through the tiers, looking for Pokemon that didn't really share weaknesses. And this Pokemon shares one weakness with Conkeldurr, but also resists one thing that Conkeldurr can't handle. So Conkeldurr is weak to Psychic, Flying, and Fairy. And I went with a Psychic type to counteract his Psychic weakness with Latios. So Latios, very speedy, great dragon typing. In the OUA tier, we did ban the Mega versions of Latios and Latias. That being said, regular Latios is still very, very nice to have. He's very fast, great move pool, great utility and support move pool as well. And you can put lots of different items on this guy. You can give him a Scarf, you can give him a Life Orb, you could give him something ridiculous like an Assault Vest. Now granted, it's not the best idea that you go for that, but Latios gets really good moves, much like Latias does. So I went with Latios as my second pick, so that brought me down 15 more points. I wanted something then to counteract both Conkeldurr and Latios' weaknesses, so I decided to go with my third pick, Volcarona. Volcarona is the prime example of what I like to call a setup sweeper in Gen 5 OU, because Volcarona could get in there, get off maybe one Quiver Dance, and that's the end of the game. That's it right there. The only reason Volcarona isn't in OU and is sitting in Borderline right now is because Volcarona is questionably powerful. The reason being, it's 4 times weak to Stealth Rock, and I knew that it was 4 times weak to Stealth Rock, but I counteracted this with the fact that Latios does learn Defog, so I can give Latios Defog, and then Volcarona will not have to worry nearly as much about anything of the sort, any rock-type attacks, any Stealth Rocks really bothering it. So Volcarona is my dedicated setup sweeper, and this might seem odd, but considering that Volcarona is my dedicated setup sweeper, you might question the fact that I took Omastar as my round 4 draft. Now, people thought it was a bit strange going for Omastar that fast, but just in case he was taken later, I didn't want to really bother with any competition over Omastar. Now, I know Omastar is not the greatest, but he is an RU, and he is in RU for a good reason. He does his job very well. Now, he can be a setup sweeper, but that's not what I'm going for with Omastar. If anyone knows how to use Omastar, it's the guy who has one as his mascot. And believe me, Omastar is a very useful Pokemon when you want it to be. It can be a physical wall, it can be a special attacker, it can be a special sweeper, and it can be a hazard setup. And those are the three main reasons. Bulk, special attack, and hazards are the main reasons why I added Omastar to this team. Not to mention that he resists the ice type 4 times that Latios is weak to. He can be counteracted by Volcarona's 4 times resistance to grass, so essentially Omastar gets protection from grass in Volcarona. And Omastar is also very effective at setting up hazards that I can get rid of with Latios, so just in case hazards go down, I can come in with Omastar and set up my own hazards with the ability Weak Armor, so if I get hit, I can still set up more hazards the next turn. So Omastar is pretty good, but I decided round 5 was where I go and drop my money into something really, really useful. So I went with Mega Scizor. I needed more physical attack because I just added 3 special attackers to the team and I only had Conkeldurr. And I was thinking about it for a while and realized I needed something that could recover, that was versatile. I needed a physical attacker, and I needed something that could take some physical hits while at the same time smashing walls. And Mega Scizor definitely knows how to smash some walls. With a base attack stat of 150 and defense of 140, I don't think I really could have gone with a better Mega Draft in round 5. Now, round 5, I drafted right before Carter, and he ended up going for Mega Aggron right after I picked Mega Scizor. Mega Camerupt soon followed, and a lot of Megas had already been snagged in the first round. Mega Venusaur, Mega Lopunny, they were snagged immediately. Mega Gallade was very soon after I had drafted Latios, so, it's very peculiar that Scizor hadn't been taken by round 5, so I went with Mega Scizor, being that he's very, very dangerous. He's very versatile. He can do a lot with his move pool, despite the fact that it doesn't seem like there's a lot he can do with it. He has boosted flying type attacks, boosted bug type attacks, boosted steel type attacks. I mean, he has priority. He's got knockoff. He's got roost. I think Mega Scizor even gets defog, which is something very bizarre. Now, granted, with this tiering system that we have in place, you must Mega the first turn that Mega Scizor is on the field. So, that being said, because you must Mega Evolve your Mega Pokemon, you can only have 1 in the field at the time. But because of that, we decided to leave the draft open so that you could draft multiple Mega Evolutions. And fortunately enough, Mega Scizor is not the only Mega Evolution I ended up drafting, but we're going to get to that at the very end of the draft. After Mega Scizor, I drafted Rotom Mow because I realized that I didn't have any Grass-type stab, which I wanted. I didn't have any pivots, really. I had Mega Scizor, but he's not a fast pivot. He's a slow pivot. And I wanted something that could pass off a Scarf. Now, Scarves really mess with teams, and I didn't want to blow the money out on something like Rotom Wash or Rotom Heat, so I went with Rotom Mow. Now, Rotom Mow is essentially where I started to have a big problem with drafting this team. I had 2 weaknesses to Ice. Now, Ice doesn't seem like a problem right now, but Rotom Mow was the start of this problem. The reason being that right after Rotom Mow, in the next round, I drafted Dugtrio. Now, Dugtrio is weak to Ice, and you're probably thinking, well, you're fine. You have Volcarona, which resists Ice. You have Omastar, which quad resists Ice. Sure, I do, but that's 3 Pokemon weak to Ice. So I had a big problem with Ice. But then I looked at the draft more, and I started to see Ice types are not popular in this format. Let me tell you, there have been so many bulky grass types that have been drafted, bulky water types that have been drafted, bulky steel types, pivotal fire types, just big bulk everywhere. So many teams have fat Pokemon all over them, and it is ridiculous how much bulk there is in everyone's draft. And I respect why they got these Pokemon, but at the same time, that is a lot of bulk. A heck of a lot of bulk. Let me give you the first 4 drafts for one of my... Here, you guys might know Richie. If you don't already, let me give you his first 4 drafts. Mega Venusaur, Togekiss, Uxie, Milotic. Ew. The bulk is just gross. There's so much bulk in this metagame. So, Richie, sorry if you are insulted by that. I'm just using you as an example. He's only one of the people that drafted a lot of bulk across all of these tiers that we installed. So it's pretty ridiculous. Anyway, I had a big ice weakness. Ice types weren't that popular, though, so I didn't worry about it too much. And I drafted Rotom, Mow, and Dugtrio. Rotom Mow will enable me to trick things, to blast things with Leaf Storm, to give me electric type coverage, and Volt Switch. Volt switching will certainly be very helpful with this team, as nothing else is a fast pivot. Now that being said, I then went for Dugtrio. The reason being, I saw a lot of walls. If I can Toxic Saw something out, then Dugtrio is it. And if you want a fast Earthquake, you aren't going to get too much better than a Dugtrio. Because Dugtrio can trap, Dugtrio can smash with Earthquake, he has Rock-type coverage, and he's got a very, very strangely diverse move pool. Despite the fact it's not the most helpful, he's a great support Pokemon. And I think that Dugtrio could be a surprise ace in the hole for my team. So I went with Dugtrio. Now, right after Dugtrio, I went for Typhlosion. And I went with Typhlosion because I looked at my team and saw 3 fire weaknesses. Now, granted, those 3 fire weaknesses aren't too bad until you take into account that one of them is my Mega Evolution, Mega Scizor. And holy cow, if I lose Mega Scizor to 1 fire-type move, that could be devastating. So I took that into account. You really have to take that stuff into account. And I looked at all of the other Pokemon in the metagame, and I saw lots of bulk and common weaknesses among certain teams. Thankfully, by this point, I only really had 2 consistent weaknesses. I had a consistent weakness to Ice, and I had a consistent weakness... No, actually, yeah. Ice was the only one. And I know Typhlosion resists it, so I went with Typhlosion. Not to mention the fact that Typhlosion was recently released with its hidden ability, Flash Fire, which gives me essentially a Choice Specs or Scarf Typhlosion with Eruption and Fire-type boosts. I can switch this thing in on anything that threatens my Mega Scizor or my Rotom Mow. Excuse me. Anything that threatens my Scizor or Rotom Mow, and hit it back with insane firepower. Now, Typhlosion does also get extra sensory, which is cool. It gets Focus Blast, which kind of helps. It gets HP Ice. Not the most coverage, but Typhlosion, unfortunately, is the only one-trick pony on the team. So, that is unfortunate. But hey, we can figure stuff out with Typhlosion. I think Typhlosion is going to be a very helpful addition to the team. Then we have Meganium. Meganium, of course, if you don't know Meme Master Cobra, or Cobra Corp videos, as you might know him on YouTube, he was very happy to see I drafted Meganium, and for good reason. Meganium, in my personal opinion, is extremely underrated. Meganium has fantastic move pool, is very tanky, you can give it a lot of items, and it works great as a supporter. It gets recovery, it gets toxic, it has a brand new ability that prevents it from getting statused in the sunlight. Sorry about that. My throat is killing me today. Anyway, it gets some pretty good special type attacks, granted that you don't really want to be doing that too much, And if you give Meganium something like the safety goggles, for instance, Meganium can become a dangerous weather immunity. So I can counter sand teams with Meganium, and I think Meganium is going to be really fun. I think Meganium was a great snag, but it did add to my ice weakness. So, unfortunately, as a whole, my team has 4 Pokemon weak to the ice type, but I do have plenty of resistances for the ice type. I have 3 resistances and 4 weaknesses, so hopefully my ice type weakness will not come back to bite me in the ass. That is the only thing I'm worried about with this team. The only thing. Not to mention I have 2 Pokemon immune to ground and a lot of Pokemon weak to it, but I'm not worried about that because immunities are very helpful. And Meganium resists it, so that's even better. Now, that being said, I'm at 10 drafts right now. Meganium only brought me down 2 points. Typhlosion brought me down 4. Rotom-Mow brought me down 6, and Dugtrio brought me down 5 points. Mega Scizor was a whopping 15 points. Omastar was 5. Volcarona was 12.5. Latios was 15. Conkeldurr was 13.5. I'm down to 9. So I go with Drapion next. I'm thinking in my head, okay, what am I lacking in coverage? I'm lacking Dark-type Stab. I'm lacking Poison-type. And I'm lacking an alternative to a Defogger. So, I happened to see that there was Drapion. Now, Drapion, granted, not a Defogger, but what he does get is Poison-type moves. Poison-type moves that can hit like a truck. Jeez, my throat is dry. Poison-type moves that hit like a truck. Great abilities that work defensively and offensively. And of course, the high critical hit chance, which granted I don't want to be reliant on, but can certainly help me. So Drapion was my next pick. Also an immunity to Psychic, which is very helpful. But finally, I decided I had 15 points remaining by the end of all of this. So I drafted one final Pokemon that surprisingly hadn't already been drafted. And the final Pokemon is Mega Gardevoir. Somehow nobody drafted Mega Gardevoir up until the 10th round of drafting. Drapion was actually the last Pokemon I drafted, but I decided on drafting him before drafting Mega Gardevoir, which is why it's in that order. Now that being said, somehow nobody took Mega Gardevoir, and I needed a special attacking Pokemon that can hit like a truck, just like Mega Scizor can. So, Mega Gardevoir was still sitting there, and I was lacking fairy coverage, so Mega Gardevoir will do exactly that. Pixelate Hyper Voice can go right through subs and destroy stall, regardless of what Pokemon is on the other end of the field, unless they resist it, of course. But if they do resist it, I still have Focus Blast, I still have Shadow Ball, I still have Energy Ball, I still have Thunderbolt, and Mega Gardevoir can even sweep with Calm Mind Substitute. Mega Gardevoir gets a very diverse move pool. It gets Signal Beam, for Pete's sake. Granted, I'm probably not going to use it. Mega Gardevoir gets access to Wish, which can allow me to Wish Pass into other Pokemon on my team. It gets Taunt, so I can counter lead. It gets Will-O-Wisp, so I can burn some really dangerous attackers. I can even use Trick Room. Now, granted, I'm probably not going to do that, but that's a little bit of an extreme. But still, I think Mega Gardevoir works very well with this team. Not to mention that Meganium, like I previously mentioned, can get access to Reflect and Light Screen, which can help Mega Gardevoir out with its somewhat low defenses. So, overall, we have a pretty dang diverse lineup, and that is exactly what I went for. I couldn't be happier with how the team turned out. And overall, the average base stat totals are showing me that I have some pretty good balance among what I drafted. I have an average base stat total of 72 HP, 90 attack, 92 defense, 97 special attack, 93 special defense, and 88 speed. Which tells me that while my team isn't the fastest and not the bulkiest, I can still hit pretty hard. And that's exactly what I want out of this. Some people drafted some really dangerous stuff. And right now, I believe that the favorite out of all of the drafts is Kano, who drafted a lot of stuff. A lot of really dangerous stuff, a lot of really bulky stuff. And so did all of the other teams. But regardless, I really like my draft. I think it worked well. I think it gives me the balance that I was looking for. And so, you guys can expect a first match up against Swansea City, which happens to be Swift. So, I will be facing against Swift in the first week of the GPC Grand Pokemon Conference. Of course, you guys get ready for that. Make sure to smash that little like button down below if you're getting ready for this. Hopefully this is the beginning of the return to more consistent content, but that is the Orlando Helix, a kind of play on the Orlando Magic. If you don't know what basketball in the United States, the team of Orlando, home of Disney World, is the Orlando Magic, and I decided to go with the Orlando Helix because it works out well. 5 letters, similar logo. You can see the whole squad on screen right now. I think this works out great, and hopefully it will prove to be effective. So I will see you guys on the first week, and expect some randomizer shenanigans and a session soon. Talk to you guys later. Have a good day.